visual cortex receives everything, it gives to different areas. Make sense? The process separately. That makes sense, right? Okay.
The primary is the receptor.
Yeah, it is receiving everything, then distributing to different areas. Then again, after being all those, cues are being processed, then given to one area again to give you the perception. So that's how the brain works. Okay. Same thing, auditory. You have sound in many different frequencies, right? Like high frequency, low frequency, medium frequency sounds, right? Human voice is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. But if you listen the call of the bat produces sound in very high frequency. You don't hear that because your range is not that high. Okay, your brain cannot process that, which is good or bad.
It's good.
Good in many ways because otherwise your brain would have been distracted, right? Too many sounds are entering into the brain. Because your brain has that limit, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. The sound below that you don't hear, the sound above that you don't hear, which is good. Yes.
What about people who are on the autism spectrum?
Yeah, that spectrum, when you say spectrum, right, that means multiple things are there. Yeah. So you will see that autism, different people have different issues. It's not like one single thing. Okay. So I'll talk about that in my lecture on 14. Okay. So in this lecture, I don't want to go to that detail. Okay. But know that when we say spectrum, that means it's a complex of many things. Okay. So it's not only language or empathy or not single thing. Okay. So that's the visual, that's the auditory. Now, this is very important. This is the central sulcus. In front of the central sulcus, this gyrus is called the primary motor cortex. Primary motor cortex, which is precentral gyrus. Pre means before the central sulcus. And this blue one is behind the central sulcus. This is a primary somatosensory cortex. So in front of the central sulcus, you have primary motor cortex, and behind the central sulcus, you have the primary somatosensory cortex. Okay, so one is motor, another is what? Sensory, right?
Is movement, is that
Yeah. Now, primary motor. Primary motor, its name is telling you, if you just think a little bit, primary motor, primary means main, motor controls the movement. Okay? So, your body movement is controlled by what? This part. Is it clear? Primary somatosensory. Sensory. Pain, touch, temperature. All those signals go from the skin. Will go here. So sensory signals go to the brain, you know that, right? And motor gets out from the brain. Okay, so this is very interesting. I did a lot of research on the brain. So if you put an electrode here and send electrical signal to this part of the brain, primary motor cortex, your body will move. If I send one stimulus, make sense? If I put repetitive stimulus, because from there the signal is going to the muscles, right? But if I give a stimulus here, it will not happen because this is somatosensory, right? This is not motor. But this area will be activated if I touch the skin. Make sense? If I touch here or pinch here, the pain, touch, that signal will go to the primary somatosensory cortex. And if you record the activity of the neuron, you'll see the neurons are getting crazily firing. Make sense? So that's how they work. frontal lobe. You see the dotted line. Within that dotted line, this area is called Broca's area. Broca's area. This area is responsible for the production of sound. Production of what? Sound. That means from this area, signal goes to the vocal cord to produce what? Sound. Is it not interesting? So you have different areas, right, for different functions. Okay. Now, why this area is called Broca's area? Because Dr. Broca, he was a neurologist, and he had a patient who got stroke. Okay, and his ability to produce language was ceased, stopped. He could not speak after that stroke. At that time, we did not have MRI or all those, ways to see the brain functions. So what happened, he waited until his patient died. When the patient died, after many years after that, he took out his brain and studied under the microscope and found that all other areas are working fine, intact. Anatomy is fine. Only this area had lesion, damage. Make sense? So he first proposed that this area is responsible for the production of sound. Okay. So later, this area has been named after his name. Okay. This area, part of it is in temporal, part of it is in parietal lobe, and this area is called Wernicke's area. This is also an interesting area. Why? Because Wernicke's area is responsible for sound recognition, understanding sound, not production. Remember, two different things. Okay? Wernicke's area is responsible for recognition or understanding of voice or sound. Okay? So Broca's area is for what?
It's for producing sound.
Production of sound, right? And Wernicke's area is for what?
Organizing.
Understanding or recognizing the sound.
When they are not close to each other, something.
They are connected to each other. Okay. So now you tell me, if lesion occurs here, tissue damage occurs here, brain tissue die here, then what will happen? This person will not be able to speak. Make sense? But he will understand what other persons are talking about. Okay? If this area is intact, but this area is destroyed, then what will happen? The person will be able to speak, but he will not be able to recognize another person's, meaning of another person's voice. Yes.
Does he recognize his own voice?
No, he won't recognize his own voice either. Okay. Yeah. So that is he will know that he is producing sound, but he will not be able to understand the meaning of it. So to understand the meaning, it has to go to Wernicke's area. Yes.
So you said Wernicke's area is part of the temporal lobe and what lobe?
Parietal lobe. This is the parietal lobe.
Okay.
So it is actually not in one single lobe. Now, let's talk about this part, the frontal lobe. Yes.
Okay, so you said they wouldn't be able to understand what it is that they say, but like, aren't you supposed to think about what you say before you say it? So like, in order for you to say something, it has to make sense in your head. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah.
really make sense when they talk.
Yeah, but it is true that you have to plan first, right? What you are saying. when we see these kind of patients, many patients, the neuroscientists, they studied many patients, and a damage of either of these two areas, it is not very strictly, and not highly specific. So the person loses the ability to understand in great extent, as well as, like other functions are impacted too. So it's not clearly that, if you show, sometimes the patient can understand the sound of very known people, like mother's voice. If the patient listens, the patient can understand in some extent that this is a known voice. Our own voice, you can understand the meaning in some extent, but not fully. So it's kind of very complex, result. Now, the frontal lobe in human is bigger than many other creatures, because this part of the brain is mainly responsible. I am saying mainly because all brain areas have multiple functions. So the frontal lobe is mainly responsible for higher order brain functions. That makes human different than other creatures. Now, brain function you can separate into lower brain functions and higher brain functions. Lower brain functions are what the other creatures also do, same functions. Production of sound, right? A bird produces sound, other creatures produce sound, right? Human also produces sound. So that is lower brain function. Defecation, micturition, right? Controlling the heart, reflex, respiration. Those functions are lower brain functions. Not only human, other creatures are also maintaining those things. Okay. Now, higher brain functions that human has: problem solving, right? Intelligence, judgment, analyzing the things, right? Emotion. All those are processed mostly in the frontal lobe, this part of the brain. Okay. So that part of the brain is more developed in human than other creatures. Make sense? So you have seen that some areas are sensory areas in the brain. Some areas are motor areas. Okay? Sensory areas like your visual cortex, auditory cortex. Then you have somatosensory cortex. All those are sensory. Motor areas, primary motor cortex, Broca area. Okay, so those are motor. Now, in addition to sensory and motor, you also have some areas, those are called association areas. Okay. Association areas are the areas where two or more functions are processed, combined together. That's why called association. Two or more types of functions are combined. Is it making sense? Association, putting together, combining together. Why? Just think that when you are listening my lecture, at the same time you are doing what? You are watching me, right? You are watching me. So when you see me, from your eye, signal goes to where? Visual cortex. Remember, in the back of the occipital lobe, right? And at the same time you are doing what? Listening. So from the ear, the signal is going to the upper part of the temporal lobe. So far away from each other, right? They are far away from each other. But those two signals are combined together continuously. Those two signals are being combined. Otherwise, it will not make sense. Just think that. You are seeing me here, I'm moving my mouth, and if sound comes from that skeleton, if sound goes from there, when they will be combined, that will not make sense. Make sense? So that's why you have association areas where two or more modalities or functions are being combined to make what? Sense. That yes, they match. Like you are looking at me, like 90 degree, and sound is also going from same location. Okay? But if they are going from separate locations, that means not coming from same person. Okay? So the brain needs to combine two or more functions together to give you the picture of that thing. Okay? So that's why you need association areas. Okay, if you see the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere, you have a white band-like structure here that is called the corpus callosum. This one. Corpus callosum is the structure through which fibers from one hemisphere go to the other side. So it is like this. This is one hemisphere here, this is another hemisphere. From two hemispheres, the fibers are going through the corpus callosum like this. So this is the corpus callosum. Okay? So interhemispheric interaction occurs through the corpus callosum. Why you need that? How many eyes you have? Two, right? So your right eye sees one side of your visual field, left eye sees the other half, right?
This means
But-
that the half of the brain, the right is controlling the left and the left.
Usually, yes, yes.
That's
Most of the
what we need
functions,
it.
right. So, they need to then combine them together. Make sense? They need to combine those two pictures together. That's why you need the corpus callosum. Is it clear? Same thing, you have 2 ears, right? 2 limbs, upper limbs, 2 lower limbs. So, they should talk to each other. 2 hemispheres need to exchange or talk to each other. Okay. You see, primary olfactory cortex responsible for smell perception, and in this area, your taste signal is processed. This is the olfactory bulb, takes the signal to this area. Anyway, so those are some other structures you see in the medial aspect of the brain. Last thing, homunculi. This is very interesting. Okay, another interesting thing about the brain. You remember here, this is the central sulcus, right? And this gyrus is called primary motor cortex, and this is called primary somatosensory cortex. Remember that? Okay. So in these 2 gyri, you have your entire body map, and that is called homunculus. This is primary somatosensory cortex. If I make a section like this, coronal section, and go through the primary somatosensory cortex, this is a slice of the brain, and if you see, the map of your whole body is here in this area. This is very interesting, okay? So, this is somatosensory map. That means what? Look at this. If I touch your face here, signal will go to this part of the cortex. Make sense? If I touch here, these neurons will receive the signal, will show excitation, firing. If I touch your hand, this area will receive the signal from your hand. Touch, pain, temperature. Now, if I touch your trunk, this part of the body, signal will go here. Touch your foot, the signal will go here. Now, okay, is this guy the map is proportionate to your real body map or disproportionate map? What do you think? Yes. Because your head is not bigger than your trunk. But you see here, trunk is in very small part of the somatosensory cortex, right here in the brain. So in the brain, you have the whole body map, but that map is not proportionate to your body size. Is it clear? So it is a disproportionate map in the brain. Now you tell me, why, what do you think? Why the hand area is big? That means you have more neurons to process the signal from the hand, right? Bigger area. Why is that? This is an use-dependent map. What? Use-dependent. That means the part of your body you use more, that area is bigger. Make sense? You feel the things mostly by hands, right? Fingers. That's why you need more neurons there, more area, the bigger area there. Make sense? Foot. You always feel, touched by foot when you step. So, face, highly sensitive. So you need more neurons. So that's why it is disproportionate. There are studies that have shown that those people play piano from childhood, like for many years, the finger areas get what? Bigger than other people. So use dependent. The area you use more, that area expands. Okay? The area you use less, that area shrinks. Make sense? So this is not a fixed map. Okay? You can change this map by practice. Make sense? You can change this map by practice. Okay. Now, if I see the map in the primary motor cortex, very similar. Primary motor cortex. See, similar map you have there too. That is the motor homunculus. Why? The hand area is bigger because we move our hands a lot, right? So motor, movement, not touch. This is motor. So movement, okay? So you need bigger area to move the hands. Okay? So this is interesting. And what I did a research in this area. This is very interesting, you see. You know raccoons, right? Have you seen raccoons?
Trash pandas.
Yeah, exactly. They use these two fingers a lot, okay? To peel the things, eat the things, okay? And if you see raccoon brain, these finger areas are very big, okay? Very big, side by side. Clearly you can see the each finger area in human brain clearly. We know this area is for the fingers, but in raccoon, these two areas are separated by sulcus, okay? You can see that. Now what I did, I dissected the nerve here, okay? So no more signal is going from this finger to that part of the brain, okay? And this area got silent for a while. Then what happened, the neurons from adjacent areas started to send signal to this area, because remember, the brain or the neurons don't want to stay silent. They don't like to stay silent. Okay? They are hungry for signal. Okay? They are hungry for signal. So since this area, I made that area silent because no more signal is going from this finger to that area. Adjacent finger areas, these two areas, encroached into that area. Okay? Started to, produce new dendrites, dendritic arborization occurred. And after a few days, when I touched these fingers, the area for this finger in the brain, which was silent, those neurons started to get, fired crazy, started to fire. So that means from adjacent areas, the neurons produced new connections, make sense? Into that silent area. And that is the plasticity that happens everywhere in the brain. You know, when you get stroke, certain area in your brain is damaged, you know, so new arborization occurs, okay, new connections are produced. That happens more in children in early childhood because the plasticity in early childhood is much higher than adult. In adulthood, the plasticity is less, okay. Okay, so let's stop here.